those who know me and yet still love me occasionally remind me that there are times that I am so focused on what I am doing, whether behind the wheel driving my car or maneuvering my way through the grocery store, that I am completely oblivious to the people around me. People will toot their horns, hoping to just sort of catch, just kind of a say hi. I just assume that they're just annoying people beeping horns. And other times, I just don't know what it is. My line of sight and vision is narrowed. So if that's ever happened, please forgive me. I'm working on it. Because I think all of us have those places of narrowed vision. We need a vision correction. And in many ways, that is what this message in the Gospel of John, and in fact, what much of the Gospel of John is all about. It is significant that the Gospel of John begins with a wonderful prologue that speaks about light coming into the world, a light that no darkness can ever overcome, that light of Christ. And that when the first potential disciples come to Jesus and want to learn more, the invitation that Jesus extends to them is a very simple one: come and see. The idea of seeing is very intimately connected with the message that John wants us to understand about Jesus' life and ministry, his purpose and meaning. He came that people might see the world in a new way, that the light of the world might cast its rays into the very dark places in which people lived. And so this long but many layered story is really very much at the heart of the message. And there are a number of things, without repeating the story and the various ways in which it unfolds, that I want to share with you in this brief meditation this morning. The first of them is that the disciples, even though they were being prepared by Jesus, he was teaching them on a regular basis, they were accompanying him, they were sitting at table with him, they were listening to the ways in which he was sharing the scriptures with them, and understanding, opening their understanding, they still didn't quite get it. They encounter this young man, and the first question that the disciples ask is, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? They do not see the man, really. They see a circumstance and ask about a cause. They engage in a theological or philosophical conversation. What they don't comprehend is that standing in their presence is a young man who has never seen a sunrise or a sunset, who has never looked upon the eyes of the faces of his parents, who has never had any of those experiences we often take for granted, to see the world around us. Jesus meets his need. Jesus encounters the real person, and he reaches down into the dirt, into the very substance of the earth itself, and he mixes it with his own saliva, and he places it on the man's eyes in a kind of healing ritual. And he sends the man to a healing pool of Siloam, and says, wash. And this young man, who has asked nothing of Jesus, who simply has this encounter, goes and does what has been offered to him. And as he washes his eyes in the pool, he can see for the very first time in his life. It should have been cause for celebration, cause for praise and prayer and gratitude. But no, it's a complication. There's got to be some way of discounting this experience. And so people begin to say, well, maybe that really wasn't the blind man. You know, he looks like him, but maybe it's somebody else. And so they scour the neighborhood, and they actually bring his parents in. And he assures the religious leaders, yes, this is my son, and yes, he has been blind since birth. How he has been able to see, I don't know. The Pharisees, so concerned with narrowing vision, also say, well, this can't be a real healing. This can't be of God, because after all, this took place on the Sabbath, when work should not be done. So if this man, Jesus, whoever he is doing these healing things on the Sabbath, then clearly he's not a man of God, and therefore we can discount the fact that who knows what really happened to this young man anyway. Parents, realizing that this was churning up some turbulence and not wanting to be on the wrong side of a religious controversy, said, well, you know, he's of age. You can ask him. Let us off the hook. And so they bring the man in, and he can tell them what happened. He can tell them the name of the man who did these things for him and the very specific things that were done. And he's told the story now several more times, each time exactly the same way. And at the heart of it, he says, I don't know how it happened. I simply know that I was blind, and now I see. Eventually, he gets tossed out of the synagogue. He's a problem. And Jesus, at the close of this very long story, goes in search of this young man whose sight has been restored. And he shares with him who he is. And the young man, eyes open, able to see not only physical sight, but spiritual sight as well, says, Lord, I believe. I suspect that this story was meant not only to be a first century criticism of religious authorities, but an ongoing message even for those within the Christian community, lest we become like the Pharisees or even the disciples, that we encounter individuals and needs as we go through the ordinary course of our days, and we either pass by, not seeing or choosing not to see, not stopping, not really treating the other person as one whom God has invited into our journey as well. Or we try to explain away why it is we don't want to get involved. I think that this text is meant for a reminder to us of what it means to be vehicles through whom the light of Christ still shines. That we are intended to be people who